Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video today, we're actually going to be building my friend's first gaming PC. Now long story short, he actually played on laptop before, so he has kind of been on PC. And funnily enough, that laptop is actually the laptop I first used when I started PC gaming. But that laptop's about 7 years old now, so he just wants to upgrade. He wants a desktop PC, and he came to me and asked me what he could build for a certain budget. I believe his budget was around 800-ish. I can't remember exact prices for all the parts right now, but I will get them so you can see throughout the video. But that's exactly what we're doing today. We're building him his first gaming PC. So let's get on with the video. Alright, so for the CPU, we've gone with the Ryzen 5 5600. This is a very capable CPU, and it's not much different from the 5600 except slightly higher max clock speeds. But the difference in price was around £7, I believe, on Amazon. So I told him just to go for this. Now some of you might be wondering why he didn't choose to go for AM5, and it's simply that he was on a budget. And if we spent too much on the motherboard, CPU and RAM combo, then he would have had to get a much worse graphics card, and that's not really what he wanted. Now my friend doesn't actually play many esports titles. He plays World of Warcraft, some other games like Phasmophobia, so it's not like he needs a really powerful CPU for like a game like Fortnite, so that's why we went for that. And for the motherboard, we've gone for this Gigabyte B550 Gaming X V2. So the SSD we've gone for is a Gen 4 SSD, and this will just make sure that as well that his graphics card is being fully utilised through the PCIe 4 slot. And like I said, I will put prices on screen for all these parts, and then I will put a full breakdown at the end of how much it all costs. So it's actually a really nice looking board. It's not too cheap. I mean, as you guys know, I'm so used to using B450 motherboards from China, and their VRM coverage is bad. They usually have 2 RAM slots. There's a lot of things that you lose out on with the cheaper boards, but this is a very solid board. It's going to work perfectly with all his components, so that's the board we've gone with. And for RAM, we've gone for this Course of Vengeance 16GB kit, 3600 MHz, I believe is CL18. But it's a decent kit. It obviously is a budget kit, but you don't need to be spending a lot. As long as you have good speeds and at least somewhat decent timings, it's absolutely fine. And the good thing is, if he wants to upgrade to 32GB, he's got the space on the motherboard to do so. He can have 4 RAM slots. But yeah, this is the kit we've gone with. And for storage, we've gone for this Gen 4 drive from Kingston. It's a 1TB with speeds up to 6000 megabytes. So it's a very solid drive. It wasn't too expensive, that's why we went for it. And it's going to provide him with a lot of storage. Now for the power supply, we've gone for this MSI Mag 650 watt unit. It's only 80 plus bronze, but it does have, and it does say on the back, it's got 648 watts on the 12 volt rail, so it should be fine. Now you will see the graphics card that we have used, we will be pushing the limits of this power supply, but that's because we was originally going to go with a different graphics card, and then when we seen the price difference between some of them, we decided to go for a more powerful graphics card. So this should do the job, especially considering the fact that the Ryzen 5 5600 is not a power hungry CPU. So this should definitely do the job. And now for the graphics card, we've gone for this Gigabyte RX 7700 XT. Now the reason we went for this was originally he asked me what kind of graphics card he could fit in the budget, and we were looking at the 3060 12GB. We then looked at the 4060 8GB, because actually the 4060 8GB does perform slightly better in many games. Of course it has less VRAM, but in 1080p I think actually 8GB is fine, unless you're obviously going to then go into 1440p ultra settings. But then I said to him, look, why don't you just get like an AMD card? You don't play games like Fortnite, you don't play esports games. So obviously this is a very solid card, and it will perform fairly close to 4070, not quite as close, but he only paid I think £380 for this card. So when you look at how much the 4070 still go for, around £500, the performance difference isn't much compared to the price. So this is a very solid card that he's gone for. Now I will just show you guys what it looks like as well before we put it in the build. It's quite a beefy card. The only thing we haven't checked is the case he went with is full size ATX obviously, but we're not sure about the actual dimensions for the graphics card, like what fits. So hopefully this will be fine. But yeah, what a lovely card this is. Really is a nice little card actually. So I think we've gone for a very good choice here. And the 5600X will be able to match with this quite well. Okay, so for the case, which you're not going to be able to see from up here, but this is a case he chose himself. And I did say to him, look, you could get something like the NZXT, I think H5, the one with like the mesh at the front, black style case. It looks alright, it's from a good brand, but the only thing he wanted in the end, because he did say he didn't want RGB, but he then looked at more cases and he said he wanted one that has RGB. So he ended up going for this case. I didn't have any input into it, and I don't even know which case this is. I will put it on screen anyway, but let's just open it up and see what it actually looks like. I may move the camera so you guys can see better as well. Right, so let's have a look at the case. I haven't actually seen this apart from photos. I don't think it's the nicest looking case at all, but it's the case he chose. So at least it's got some good ventilation there. It's got 3 pre-installed, I think they are ARGB fans. It's got support for, oh, it actually has a load of fans inside of it. So the cool thing is, at least, I think he may have paid about £69 for this case. Looking at it, the graphics card is definitely going to fit. And it does come with 6 pre-installed fans. Hopefully they're the right orientation. 3 for intake, exhaust, and exhaust up there. So that is good. It's got plenty of airflow at least. Like I said, it's not the case I would choose, but it's his PC, so he can choose whichever case he wants. It looks quite tall to me and not very wide. But let's just grab the graphics card and make sure it's going to fit in. Wow, that couldn't have been much closer, could it? But funnily enough, it was the same when I had my 3080 Ti, which was my first NVIDIA card. It literally just fit into my case. So yeah, I mean, it's got a nice little door, which does just clip in. But yeah, it'll do the job at least. And now the only other thing to mention is, does this come with a CPU cooler? I believe it does, the 5600X. But it doesn't matter anyway, because I do have a plan. He's obviously got a very good graphics card in there. It's going to look nice. I don't want him to... Yeah, it's got a stock cooler in there. But I don't really want him to just have a boring old plain stock cooler. So what we're going to do is put in one of these Johnsbow CR14 Evos. You know I've been using these. This is actually a black one, even though the front of the box looks like it's white. But I've used them before. That way we can sync up all the RGB and have a nice little RGB cooler as well. And it'll just make that build look even better, a little bit better. But right, let's get on with building the PC. I will just roll some footage of me doing that. Alright guys, so this is how the PC turned out. I'm extremely happy with how it looks. I just don't like that the case is so high in proportion to the width. But it's not my case, it's not my PC, and he is very happy with it. I've sent him photos. He is over the moon, so that's all that matters. But now, let's go test it in some games. Alright, so first up we got Fortnite. Obviously, I'm a bit of a Fortnite nerd, so I did want to test it in this game. Now, in creative, we actually played at 1080p performance mode, but I didn't play in game with these settings, only because the FPS increase wasn't that much over DX12. Now, I think this is more of an AMD card issue. I see a lot of people having issues with AMD graphics cards and performance mode, and even Fortnite in general. But in creative, we did see around 400 to 450 FPS max, and when we were building, we were seeing around 300. But within the actual Battle Royale game, we played at DX12, all low settings, but far view distance, and we averaged around 190 to 200 FPS. I didn't actually play a full game, and this was my first game, so the FPS may be better once all the graphics have been rendered in properly. But it was a pretty smooth and enjoyable experience even on DX12. The next game we tested was Apex Legends. Now, I've never played this game, so I don't know the best settings, but I pretty much had everything on low except a few things, but my settings will be on screen. Now, trust me when I say this, I installed this game just for benchmarks. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I don't think half my bindings are set up, as I'm just bot walking around half the time. I'm pretty sure my teammates must have been pretty annoyed having to team up with me. But either way, on the settings we chose, we averaged around 250 FPS, so I would say these are probably competitive settings, but the game still looks really good if you ask me. But if you play Apex Legends, let me know what kind of settings I should be using to benchmark the game. For the next game, we tested Marvel Rivals because this seems to be quite a popular game at the moment, even though it's not something I would normally play. But we just used the Ultra preset, I guess that's what you could call it, and honestly, it actually performed very well. I don't think most people would probably just set everything to Ultra and be done with that. I know there's some settings you could probably tweak, have some low, have some high, for the best clarity, but also good performance. But with these settings, we averaged around 72 FPS, which I think is pretty reasonable considering this is quite a new and demanding game. Next we tested Cyberpunk 2077 at the Ultra preset, but we turned any upscaling off. And once again, this is a fairly demanding game, but overall it looked very good and we had some very solid FPS, averaging around 107. Now, one thing I will mention is our GPU is staying ultra cool in all these games, even when it's being fully utilized. Our CPU is staying within good ranges, but obviously this is only a 90mm air cooler. Of course, with a larger air cooler or a water cooler, you would get much better CPU temps. But overall, so far, so good. Next, we tested Shadow of the Tomb Raider at the highest preset, and even though this is quite an old game, it can be fairly demanding. A lot of the budget builds I normally build on this channel really struggle to get over 60 FPS, even on medium to high settings. But overall, this performed very well, and it also looked very good visually. But on average, we got around 163 FPS whilst running through the in-game benchmark. And last but not least, we tested Forza Horizon 5 at the Ultra preset. Now, this is actually a game I would play, and I have played previous Forza games, but honestly, visually this looked amazing, obviously being on the highest preset, and honestly it performed very well as well. But after running the Forza benchmark, we averaged around 116 FPS. And what made me laugh was the suggested preset was low. I mean, I can understand they want us to get as much FPS as possible, but why would you run low on a machine like this? But anyway guys, that's going to be it for this video today. Let me know what you think of this PC. Do you think the parts we chose were fair? And would you say for the budget it was a good build? Let me know what you think. And anyway, I'll catch you all in the next video.